Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. We got a full house today with our co-host Richie Schneiderite. We got Chris Nalwasky and Craig Epstein as well. Guys, we had a bye week last week, so we were a little late on content, but that doesn't mean that stuff wasn't happening. We have a lot to talk about. Recruiting, the whole football staff was out last week recruiting all over the area. We had a press conference today where Schiano kind of addressed some of the changes for the team. And we also have basketball season rapidly approaching. So we have a lot we're going to get into. But first, this podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. Football is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. As your continued source for all your sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. You can head on betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus that's boosted up from 50% we were offering earlier in the season on your first deposit. Make sure you use the promo code BLEAV to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts.
I'll tell you one thing, football might be back in New York between the Jets and Giants. I mean, what's going on, man? This is crazy.
Out here in the Philly streets, we only talk really elite teams like the Phillies and Eagles. I don't know if you guys know that they're the only undefeated team left. So I don't want to hear anything about your 5-1 or 4-2 teams. So
hey, listen, you barely beat Cooper Rush. Congrats.
Did you watch that game?
No, you guys did. You guys did. There's no hate towards me.
As a great man once said, good teams win, great teams cover, and I'm pretty sure the Eagles covered last night. So I don't want to hear anything.
That's true. I mean, anyway, we're also sponsored by Adam Goldman. He's the franchise coach. Bear with me today. I got this nasally ass voice. I hate cold weather. It's brutal. So what you could do is hit up Adam Goldman. He could be he's the franchise coach. He could set you up with a new job, new kind of American dream, if you want to call it that. He's a New Jersey guy, Watchung Hills native, Night Report member, Scarlet Knight fan. If you're kind of just trying to switch your career up and you're thinking up with your career, I'm just repeating myself at this point. He has the expertise to kind of help you lead you in the right direction. He's been doing it for 10 plus years. He's helped people set up multiple franchises all across the state and across the country, really. So give him a call today, 844-800-3726. And if you want to open up an urgent care, I mean, I'll go right away because I need something. I need something to fix this. This is just, like, brutal. I was telling Mike before, like, a cold for a guy is, like, I might want to go to the hospital. Like, it's bad.
Yeah, Richie's basically in labor right now, so put your prayers up for him. By the time you hear this, maybe he'll feel better. But he's doing the Jordan flu game today. Yeah. So let's talk bye week. Schiano had his Indiana first game week press conference today. Let's talk a little bit about what he discussed there. Guys, I didn't watch the video. Some of you were part of that. So what did Schiano have to say in the Indiana game week press conference?
I mean, first podcast that Rutgers hasn't lost in a couple weeks now. Woohoo! Bye week.
Sorry, I had a tough team at Bye State.
Yeah, it was an interesting press conference, though. He talked a little bit about Nunzio and mentioned the offense is a little bit more energized under him. All three quarterbacks are back, so that's huge. We're probably going to see a stupid roulette again, which it sounds like, and I'm going to be miserable watching that. Like, I don't know how many quarterbacks you could sub in on one series. Maybe we get 4 in one series with Langan, so that'd be a little interesting. It might be a record, right? Like, that has to be a record. Other than that, he didn't mention a whole lot. It was kind of a little bleak. He did mention Kanopka's out for this week. Longer Beam and Aaron Young are both like game time decisions. He said they're getting close and he's pretty hopeful, but he's not 100% sure yet. He did mention something interesting when he said normally weeks like for the bye week, most of the starters will take a little bit of it, like take it easy a little bit, take a little bit of a break. But this week's a little different in terms of offense, at least, because these guys have to learn like completely new system, not completely new, but new schemes, new calls, and all kinds of stuff like that. So, like I said, it wasn't a whole lot, but he did mention Nuns in the offense. It looks a little rejuvenated. It sounds like.
Yeah. He said the team, is really energized. I'm sure the bye week helped with that. Getting guys healthy, or at least resting. He talked a lot about Joe Harris-Mack's defense and how well they're doing, and that they have good chemistry and everything. He talked about Christian Izzian and that he's been consistent all year, and it stems from him being healthy coming into the season. He wasn't banged up at all. In the spring or the off season, which has been big for him. He's obviously a key part of the defense back there. He talked about, someone asked about, potential bowl game down the line, and he said, he just mainly wants to go 1-0 this week, and take care of Indiana. A couple other things. Talked about Joe Susan moving to tight ends. How he's done that before. He's been on, coaching in the past. So, not too much other than those couple things that we both mentioned. But I guess the main things is that Gavin Wimsatt was back practicing last week. So there's probably a good chance you'll see him this week.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this bye week is all about getting the offense right, because through these first up to this point, I think the defense has been solid. The Iowa game, it really wasn't the defense that cost them. It was mostly them kind of shooting themselves in the foot. Couldn't get anything going offensively. Ohio State, what are you going to do? It's Ohio State. They're probably going to win the national championship, so there's nothing you can do against that. But going into this Nebraska game, it was just like, okay, this is the game where Rutgers should start looking like a real offense, and it just didn't happen. We saw the defense kept them in the game. 13 giving up or 14 points giving up 14, that should be enough to get you the win. But the offense, what was it, three offensive touchdowns in 4 weeks? That's just not good enough. And maybe statistic wise, Iowa might have a worse offense, but to be honest, they have a great defense to back it up, like an elite defense to back it up, and that's really what helps them. But to me, this offense has been probably the worst in the Big Ten. Maybe it's probably ranks lower in all of college football. It's just been bad. There's been no consistency at quarterback, which is something that I hope we start getting. Even if you want to do a little bit of roulette, that fine, but just make it make sense, because as we kind of beaten to death now, the Johnny Langan packages from 70 yards out, running up the middle, don't do anything. Constantly just running on first down up the gut, just getting maybe 1 yard, doesn't do anything. This offense has to start looking like a real offense, and hopefully this bye week with Nuns, they're starting to get its feet under them. And from now you got a game against Indiana, another winnable game against a not great team at home. So once again, this is time for Rutgers offense to really kind of put up or shut up, because after that it does not get any easier.
You've been holding that 1 inch for a while.
Yeah, probably.
So it is kind of a bit of Rutgers' last stand this weekend. I think Greg only makes that move to fire Sean Gleason mid-season if he thinks the season can be salvaged in some way. So I don't think that we're just going to see all the young players come in and play just regardless of if it's the best player or not right now. I do think we're going to see some weirdness, because they're going to try and put the best players on the field for certain situations like they have all season. Maybe they'll try and do something that makes a little more sense, like removing the Langan package, maybe not shuffling through guys as much, because I think you really do have to build some sort of rhythm in the offense, and I don't think that comes by moving quarterbacks out every other play or every series. So maybe guys just have shorter leashes instead. If you're going to start quarterback X, he stays in until he either can't make throws because he gets hurt, or because he makes a lot of mistakes, and it makes sense to bring in the next guy. I also don't think they'll put Gavin in unless he's truly 100% and he's not at risk for further injury, because Shiano has kind of pointed to, how Gavin, if he would have been able to play, he would have played, but there was a risk that he would further injure himself the last couple of games, and that's why he hasn't played, but he has warmed up. And at the same time, Shiano mentioned in his last press conference when he fired Sean Gleason that announcing kind of their plans for the offense would give them a competitive disadvantage. So they're not going to say too much about what they're thinking moving forward. But I do expect some significant changes as to how they run the offense. And we'll all find out together on Saturday how that's actually going to look. But game prep wasn't the only thing that they were doing during the bye week. The staff was out and about all throughout the region recruiting. Richie, it always is interesting that the staff kind of shows their hand with who they're really targeting in the future classes by who they visit in season, especially with a helicopter. So who were some of the top targets that they hit up this week during their bye week, the staff?
Yeah. So the interesting one, like you mentioned, the helicopter was brought out to go over to Jersey City. I mean, not really that far, so I probably would have just drove, but that's besides the point. Save a little gas here and there. Gas is expensive. But no, they made a trip out to Schneider High School over Jersey City. DJ McClary's over there. He's an athlete in the 2025 class. So it's not even this class. It's not the next class. It's the class after that. But Rutgers is trying to get in there early. He's already been to campus, I think, 2 or 3 times. He has a couple big offers. Marquise Watson offered him when he was down at, I guess Marquise and Chris Partridge offered him when he was down at Ole Miss. And he's been on him specifically for quite some time. He also has Syracuse, Boston College, Akron, a couple of those offers. So he's going to be a big-time recruit in 2025. He's going to be one to watch. And then the staff also was spending a lot of time down in Florida. They obviously checked in on some of their commits. They checked in on Bo Mascow in his school, who was producing, I think, multiple 4-stars this year. Who else? There was someone else. They went down to Cardinal Mooney, which is Drew Lascari's old high school they used to coach at. Teddy Foster, a kid who visited, I want to say game 2 or game 3, whatever it was, the 24th. So that was what? The Iowa game, I think. So he came up for the Iowa game, and right? He came up for the Iowa game. Rutgers is really zeroing in on him as a cornerback, as one of the top cornerbacks in the 2024 class. Obvious connection, like I just said, Lascari coached down there, so that's always a helpful thing. I think the tweet that their coach put out was like, "Love you, brothers," at Drew Lascari, whatever that is. So that's big, and that's a school that's going to produce a couple of notable players. And then the guy went to Florida and literally flew back home to go back to his other stomping grounds with Don Bosco, where he was going to see the Jordan Thomas, who else? Jaden Brown, who I don't know if Rutgers has actually offered yet, a linebacker, but 2 Bosco kids, and then Seton Hall Prep obviously has Jalen McClain, who they were taking on. These guys were out all throughout the region. Demir Shaw went over to Roman Catholic, and even their head coach tweeted out something like, "Coach Shaw is really that guy." In layman's terms, it's like, wow, he's the dude, like he's the man. I don't know how else to put it. But he went to see one of the top prospects in the country in Tessir, Denmark. He's the only kid that Rutgers actually offered for Roman Catholic so far, which I found a little interesting because they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have 8 kids in the next 3 classes that have Power 5 offers already. And wow. I don't know if you're going to land most of them, but I still think you have to send out the offers and at least try to garner a little bit more interest. So that's something to monitor, especially because one of the coaches, Demir Shaw, just went and checked them out. Nuns went to his old stomping grounds of Bergen Catholic to watch them play St. Joe's. Yasin Willis was obviously the main target there. I really think Rutgers has a really good shot there. He's very keen on the idea of staying home. Now, it's going to be tough to keep him away from some of those big names, especially when a guy like Audric Estime is killing it at Notre Dame now. Mind you, Notre Dame's not killing it, but he's doing good for Notre Dame. But yeah, I would definitely keep a close eye on him. I'm trying to think where else. I mean, Heatherman went out to Pennsylvania to see his linebacker commit and Davon Fuse. These guys were just basically everywhere. Ulrich was out in Ohio in his kind of territory to see a kid named Tito Glass, who is currently unranked for us, but should have a ranking soon. He's another prospect to keep an eye on. He's like a running back / linebacker, but if Ulrich is out there, he's probably going to play running back for Rutgers if he was to commit. These guys were all over the region and even extended out a little bit in terms of, I guess, what does Greg call it? Rutgers, not Rutgers country, because you can't say that. Rutgers, let's
State
ride.
of Rutgers, come on.
State of Rutgers, whatever, same thing. These guys were everywhere for the most part. They were bouncing around. I don't know if Joe Susan or Marquise Watson went anywhere. I didn't see anything posted about it, and I don't think we posted anything about it either. But it's a good start to the 2024 class, although they don't have any commitments yet. I think they're going to expand this region a little bit and the state of Rutgers and take it down to Florida again. Maybe add a couple Midwest kids again, like they did in 2022, and kind of go from there. It was a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, and obviously we have a home game on Indiana. We'll have a full podcast preview for that later in the week, but we do have a visitor list that's started up for the football game.
Yes.
Looks like it's not too full yet. I'm sure there's going to be tons of kids there, but it looks like we're going to have an Erasmus Hall contingent like we normally do for home games, so keep an eye on that thread for more visitor notes as the week goes on. But let's pivot to basketball. First, I want to talk recruiting. We're going to talk you guys. Some of you guys were at the basketball practice last week. You guys got to see what the team looks like. But we got some bad news regarding one of our top targets in the 23 class. Papa Conte sounds like he is headed elsewhere. It sounds like he's down to Michigan and Memphis. What ended up coming down to we won't say on the podcast what Richie's hand motion just showed, but it sounds like his decision may not totally be based around the court and the basketball on the court.
Yeah, Memphis doesn't cheat. Come on, dude. They never got in trouble before. Yeah,
no, they've never gotten in trouble. They never had FedEx internships that were basically only offered to the basketball team, and the team walks in and walks out with a suitcase after 10 minutes. So that's a big blow to our recruiting efforts. We still obviously need a big man to replace Cliff for next year. So where's the basketball team at regarding recruitment for this class and next? I also see we have an article from this past weekend kind of highlighting some of our top 24 targets. So just kind of give us a state of the union with basketball recruiting.
Yeah, so I'm going to keep this short and sweet because, like I said before, I got a cold, I'm tired of talking, and I'm sure Chris wants to talk about hoops, the team, not recruiting. But yeah, no, I mean, Papa Conte sounds like he's going elsewhere. Memphis obviously hired the director of his AAU program, so I really think they have the edge right now. Although he did take a visit to Michigan this past weekend, his second official visit to Michigan in the past, 7 months, 6 months, whatever the hell it was. He's going to end up at one of those two schools. My money's on Memphis right now. But after him, it's kind of looking a little bleak at the moment, but we have an article coming out, I guess this is posted Monday. So we have an article coming out Tuesday on Jocelyn Bodo. I forget how to pronounce it. He's a Southern California Academy, which is like one of the top producers of talent in the nation right now. They're like not the new Oak Hill, but they're pretty up there. They just sent kids to LSU, Michigan State, and somewhere else, some other big Providence in the 2022 class alone. So this kid kind of blew up. He was playing behind those guys. He went to the Pangos opening, which is like the top all-star event for hoops recruiting, and he went there. He dominated, and all of a sudden Rutgers was like, "Oh, hey, who's that?" And then T.J. Thompson went out to see him. T.J. Thompson's old high school coach is now the head coach of the prep academy over there at Southern California Academy, whatever the hell it's called. SoCal Academy. So there's a little connection there. T.J. went out, watched the kid again in person, and then they offered. And he's very new to the recruiting process. He's from Cameroon. His coaches are kind of helping him out a little bit here and there in terms of visits. He hasn't scheduled anything yet, but I know that he's very high on Rutgers and he's very high on Arizona State at the moment. Xavier's in there a little bit as well. East Carolina's kind of trickling in a little bit too. But I do think Rutgers has a really good shot at landing this California big man. And, I mean, based on the fact that they landed a pretty damn good California big man not too long ago under Pike, I think this could be a pretty good addition for Rutgers.
Yeah, for sure. Pike's kind of proven time and time again that he's just got an eye for diamonds in the rough, which kind of leads us into how the team looked last week. Antonio Chol got so much hype from Jerry Carino when he went to see him in the first practice that was available after he arrived. Would you guys say that Antonio Chol lived up to the hype? And leading from that, how did the team look in general when you guys saw him?
Yeah, so actually Antonio Chol wasn't able to practice when we went on Friday.
That's right.
Steve Pico said he tweaked his ankle. I talked to Antonio afterwards. I mean, he said he was fine. He'll be fine. So nothing to be worried about there. Caleb McConnell also didn't practice. Sounds like he has a knee issue, which obviously never sounds good. But too early to say what happened there. But Pico thinks he'll be okay, but take that for a grain of salt. Well, I guess we'll know more as the next couple of weeks, progress. But those are the two guys on the injury front right now. Jalen Miller came back, Dean Reber came back, so they should be okay. But in terms of the practice, I really thought they started to shoot the ball well. They did a lot of work on defense. Let me go through our list here that me and Richie put together. So. Reber was starting at the 4 spot, I want to say, or Mawat Mag too, going back and forth. Dean Reber usually, back up 5, but he was also playing the 4. Mawat Mag looks really good. He's making shots. He made, there was one play. I'm not sure if Richie got a clip of it or not, but he made a nice, turnaround jumper from the baseline, which, obviously we've never seen him do before. So, he's obviously more confident. He's still pretty good on the defensive end of the ball. Cam Spencer, the transfer in guard. He shot the ball lights out. He didn't make his first couple shots, but after he got into a rhythm, man, he was hitting shots from deep, and he was getting in the face of his teammates. I know Pico said he kind of has to tone that down and wait until they play someone else instead of yelling at his teammates or whatever. But he definitely has a fire. Maybe it's not as much fire as Pete Kitts. I don't know. That's like Craig's favorite player, but Cam Spencer. He could shoot the lights out. He's definitely going to help spread the floor. He still has to work on his defense, but obviously his offense is there. Antoine Wolffolk is a freshman. Steve Pico is very high on him. Probably would play some minutes at the 5 behind Cliff. Maybe Dean Reber probably still is the backup there, but Wolffolk is definitely there. Take some minutes if possible. He's a big dude already for a freshman. He played football, so he's not afraid to, he's not afraid for a low contact. Who else was there? And obviously Antonio Troll. I talked to him. He says, Pico says he shoots like over 50% in practice so far, from on 3-pointers. So, the dude's like 6'8", 6'9". If he's making 3-pointers like that, that's something to watch there. He told me that he was, sore at the very beginning when he first came to Rutgers in mid-August, from lifting weights and conditioning and stuff like that. But he's settled in. He's obviously a little banged up now, but he should be good to go, soon. The guys, Andre Hyatt looked pretty good. He's obviously he needs to step up in terms of for Rutgers next year. Filling in for Ron Harper Jr. Right now I'd probably argue that Hyatt comes off a bench, for Mag, but obviously he's definitely a possibility to start. Maybe Mag provides some juice off the bench. Cliff Omaruri was great. He was obviously dunking everything and, really high energy up and down the court, blocking everything. So he's obviously in midseason form probably. Oscar Palmquist made some nice shots. I know Steve Pico hyped up Oscar quite a bit in the press conference. He's a big, kind of like a glue guy in the team. He practices hard. He knows what to do. He knows where to go. He's high energy guy as well. I talked to him afterwards. He's obviously more comfortable now, a couple years into his Rutgers tenure. Mag talked about Paul McCahey was obviously the main ball handler at point guard. He was very vocal. He's obviously probably going to be a captain this year. Obviously had great leadership. Derek Simpson was another freshman who struggled early, but he really bounced back and got into the lane, was very quick. He made some shots. So I think obviously for the freshmen there'll be some growing pains, but you'll probably see them play in non-conference. Get their feet wet and and get going a little bit. So I know I rambled too, like Richie did a few minutes ago about recruiting. So you guys can take it away now.
You're good. I'm just curious to get your take. I kind of feel like this team has such a good mix of kind of the veteran leadership and also the young guys. Because as we know, when it comes to Pico, kind of his bread and butter is player development, as we've seen, since he built this thing. And now you got guys like Derek Simpson, Jalen Miller, Chol, just name it. There's a bunch of guys here who are kind of, like you said, getting their feet wet, looking to develop into, quality Big Ten players. But then you also got your Paul McCahey, you got your Cliff, you got Caleb, 3 guys right there who could probably be all Big Ten type of guys. So when guys like, Simpson and those type of the younger guys might struggle here and there with some inconsistencies, guys like them can kind of coach them through it and say, hey, this is what you should do. And then kind of maybe hopefully move that development along even quicker so that, one of Rutgers' biggest Achilles heels last year was the bench because you had the starters. Yeah, right. You had your starters who logged in, 40, not 40, well, in overtime, maybe 40 plus minutes, but you'd have them log in 35, somewhere in that ballpark range of minutes. And the bench, other than really Dean Reaver, it was like the bench kind of didn't offer you much. I mean, Jalen Miller was a defensive guy. He didn't really score much. But now, as I'm seeing with your guys' videos and things like that, he's actually starting to hit some shots here and there. So if he can start doing that consistently, then all of a sudden, hey, Paul Mulcahy doesn't have to stay out there for 35 minutes. You can throw a Derek Simpson or a Jalen Miller in there to give him a breather. So if Rutgers can get that bench to help out with their starters, who I think are going to be good, then, I mean, this team, this could be another good year, and maybe another year that Rutgers makes the tournament, which for 3 years in a row would be the first time ever.
Yeah, I mean, that you pretty much hit on everything. The bench is interesting. I'm still a little concerned because it does seem like Woolfolk's probably going to be the backup 5. Reaver and Mag are kind of splitting time at the 4. It's weird because, like, when I saw it last week, I got to go, I don't know, I just got invited, so I went. It's by myself, pretty much, other than, like, the that shitty team from New York Scouts. But, yeah, so, it's a Knicks.
Got to slip that one in there, yeah. Okay.
I couldn't help it.
We got Jalen Brunson, bro, we're good.
Stop. Anyway, no, but yeah, I mean, I watched Chol. I got to watch him full practice and everything. So I don't think he's as good as, like, Carino hyped him up to be. I think Carino might have, like, hyped him up a little too much. But he's a good player. He's going to play a lot, and he's going to play some time at the 4 as well. He's shooting lights out. Pike told me the other day, 57% from 3 this practice so far. That's pretty damn high. But I still think that 4 spot, that 4-5 spot concerns me. Obviously, Cliff is Cliff. He's still going to play 30-plus minutes a game. Who backs him up? Like, is Woolfolk ready? I don't think he's ready for the Big Ten yet, honestly. And now you want to put Reaver down to the 4. It's a little interesting. I think Reaver's going to split some. I think he'll play more 5 than 4 this season. And I think that's basically just filling in for Cliff, giving him breaks here and there. He definitely brings a new diameter, a new dimension to the game. I don't know why I said diameter. A new dimension to the game. He could shoot lights out from, like, outside. I'll give him that. He's actually even dunking the ball pretty well. Even I think, Chris, didn't you mention it? Or someone mentioned it, that Cliff, he was giving Cliff trouble, like, just I can't even talk today. Jeez.
I think Pico mentioned that in his press conference.
That's what it was.
They go at each other in the paint a lot of times, and obviously that iron sharpens iron, as a lot of the football guys always say in terms of secondary and wide receivers. So I mean, obviously he goes up against Cliff every day, and he's going to be a really good player. But Illinois coach Brett Underwood said that he's probably the best player in the Big Ten. He hates Cliff. I remember. I mean, he obviously likes Cliff. He's a good player. Just mean like he hates him. Like he doesn't want he doesn't want him at Rutgers anymore. I remember after Rutgers beat Illinois, he walked out of their press conference, and he was like, man, I can't wait till this guy leaves the Big Ten or something like that. So he obviously has high praise for Cliff. So if Antoine and Dean or whoever goes up against Cliff every day, that only makes it better. So
yeah, it's not the Cliff's the issue. Like I said, it's the 4 spot, and I think that's where everyone kind of differs too. Because like I know Carino listed Reaver has his projected 4. I'm still going Mag because when I watched practice last week, it was all Mag at the 4, and that was when Caleb was healthy. So now, mind you, maybe it's not because Caleb was out at practice. That's why Reaver was starting. But even Chris said before, he said he had Reaver at the 4. So it's that's the interesting part, and then. Like everyone pegged what do you call it, Andre Hyatt just to fill in at the 4, and he seems like he's in no man's land right now. He's going to play, obviously, but I don't know what his minutes are going to look like, and you got to make up for a lot of scoring, and that's where, like Craig mentioned before, where a guy like Derek Simpson can come in and get a couple buckets. Maybe Jalen Miller kind of fixes his offense a little bit. He still needs to work on that a little more than in my opinion. So that's going to be an interesting one. Who else? I'm missing somebody. Mag, Miller, McConnell, like, who's technically, and I don't care what anyone says, that injury is kind of concerning because he mentioned that both, maybe this is just me being a conspiracy theorist, but like you mentioned both Chol and McConnell were out at practice the other day, and McConnell wasn't there whatsoever. Chol was still there, kind of doing some stuff here and there, running around, and I was like, all right, yeah, his ankle's fine, like he'll be good. But McConnell's nowhere to be seen, and that's a little bit concerning to me because that is the defending Big Ten Defender Player of the Year or whatever you want to call the goddamn award.
Yeah, so basically it sounds like the team probably isn't going to look a whole lot different in terms of what rosters we use this year because we didn't really have a great backup center last year either. We just found ways to kind of make it work when Cliff was out. Cliff played a ton of minutes last year. He's, again, the linchpin of this team because if we lose Cliff, we probably are going to be, our defensive rating probably we go from like a top quarter of the FBS, or not the FBS, the Division I
SBS.
defensive team to probably a bottom quarter defensive team, even with a guy like McConnell, because Cliff just affects so many shots. Anything within 10 feet of the basket, he's finding a way to kind of disrupt or at least make guys think twice about coming in and making those shots. I think the most interesting thing about this team will be, how does Pike's offense change with a true knockdown shooter in Cam Spencer? Because that changes so much when,
That's
how many times did we, what'd you say?
That's who I was missing. I knew I was forgetting someone completely. Yeah.
Because there's so many kickouts last year that, we didn't have defenders kind of close out on like some of our shooters because we didn't really have any true knockdown guys. We had guys who could make shots, but not somebody who is like, you can never leave this guy open kind of guys, which I think Cam Spencer is. So I think it might, create a lot more one-on-one situations. It might create a lot of more situations where we might not get that help at the rim because they know Cam Spencer is sitting, at the 3-point line right behind him. So I do think it'll change how teams have to defend us, which will be interesting. I'm not sure how this team's going to look offensively because potentially it could be very good.
Yeah, that's actually what I was actually talking to Troll and Oscar about. I asked, obviously both are big guys that can shoot, and then I asked how much them making outside shots and Cam making outside shots affect everything that they do, and they said exactly what you said. Obviously, they can shoot, and maybe Cliff has more room on the inside. He can go to work in the post, or obviously if they had to double Cliff because he's that good, he can kick it out and they can make their shots on the outside. So I think the offense might be a little better in terms of rhythm. And a lot of Gio and Ron were kind of more isolation type of players, and I think might see more of like offensive sets or more of like a rhythm on offense. I know that was kind of like a knock on the team the past couple of years. So I think you might see that. I mean, it's obviously see it before you believe it, but I think that's definitely a possibility, and definitely having the shooters is only going to help the offense, help the flow. Also, the one thing Pikel hates offense for the most part, so he loves defensive rebounding. So he thinks his team is going to be better on defense. He also believes that this team is going to be better at rebounding, and he even said it. We were not a good rebounding team the last 2 years. So he actually brought that up. In terms of talking to Oscar, how he's a good box out guy. So he definitely wants to see this team improve in those areas. And if they get better on defense and rebounding, and they make the improvements we think they're going to make on offense as a whole, then this team might end up being better in long term compared to last year.
Yeah, and something I'll be curious to see, assuming they play together more, is I kind of interested to see Caleb and Mawat Mag kind of play together defensively, because they play kind of, I think, a kind of a similar defense. Mag isn't as good as Caleb, but he kind of has that same type of super lengthy guy who's just a pain in the ass to try and get around and beat. So if he can improve and pair them together and they can play to their potential, like that's two defensive stoppers right there, which could be that could be incredible. And then you throw in Cliff, who is, like you said, the linchpin for this defense. I mean, yeah, the defense could be even better this year. And with Pike, like you said, he's a defensive guy. So if this defense can reach its full potential, it could be scary to go against Rutgers for opposing teams.
Definitely. And you got a guy like Cam Spencer, who obviously led the Patriot League in scoring last year, but he was also averaging like close to 3 steals a game, I believe. And a lot of people have said, he's playing down in competition, but I think defense, it's equal parts effort and just kind of a knack for it. Like, that perfect opportunity when a guy you can pick up when he's dribbling the ball too high, or when you just like have to do that swipe perfectly timed. And some guys just have it. They might not look like, they might not be the super lengthy wing like Caleb or Mawat Mag, but that doesn't mean they can't be disruptive on the defensive end. And I think that's kind of where Cam Spencer is, where he might not look like a prime defender. He might just kind of lull people into thinking they could dribble past him, and then he's picking their pocket. So
and
he's
again,
another guy I think we're not talking about.
Another guy who's just like a little gnat who just kind of just bugs you, and it's just a pain in the ass to get around. And you throw him in there. I mean, yeah, like I said, this defense could be special.
Yeah, who's the guy on the Pelicans? I think I made this comparison. Who was given Chris Paul fits in the playoffs? Not saying they're like equally talented, but that's who Jalen Miller reminds me of. I think his name's Jose.
Yeah, Jose Alvarado, who Steve Pikel really, 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 really wanted.
Josh Pastner doesn't cheat at Georgia Tech, I swear.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess that makes sense. Yeah. Well, it helps when, it is just like legal now and you can kind of talk about what we used to do. Back in the day, what we had to do was we had to leave money in a mailbox at his uncle's house and call him and ask how he liked his birthday cake and just
the McDonald's bags.
Yep.
Oh, jeez. Look at Tennessee now. Look at them now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Rocky Top is back.
So I was in Knoxville 2 weeks ago for my grandparents' 60th wedding anniversary, and they live right outside Knoxville. So we went into Knoxville, and they were like already preparing for a game a week away. That whole city was just like, 100% behind the Volunteers. They were playing LSU that day, but they were already thinking about how they were going to just celebrate after they beat Bama. Like they were envisioning this win, and man, what a win for them. Did you see
after they won, they took the goalpost and just like threw it in the river?
Do you think Rutgers would do that?
I don't know if
no
offense, but I don't know if we have the strength to do that. To be honest, I mean, I couldn't lift a goalpost that far, and that
so
that's just crazy.
Rutgers also has those collapsible posts. I mean, we haven't stormed the field in a while, but basically they have the team of yellow jacket dudes who get down on the field level if they expect there might be a moment that people storm the field, and they do this like total perimeter around the goalposts. And there's this little like stick you could stick into the base of the goalpost, which has them tilt down and fall to the ground. So
I don't
Rutgers,
know what we do, but Rutgers fans start hitting the gym because next time they get a big win, I want to see the goalposts taking down College Ave.
Yeah, that was a fun thing to follow on social media on Saturday because they showed them rip it down, then they showed them take it up the whole staircase of the stadium, and they showed it out on the street, and then eventually they showed people chucking it into the river, which is not the place I thought the goalpost was going to end up, to be honest. I thought they were going to break it up and like hang it in like dorm rooms or hang it inside of like a frat house because that's in college you just steal cones, you steal anything to put into as your decor in your room.
They're probably just standing there like, what should we do with this now? And they're like, I don't know. I'm surprised we got it this far, to be honest. Like, okay, let's just throw it in the river.
They were tearing up turf. Like people were like ripping out part of the checkers in the end zone. It was wild.
Mm-hmm. Throwing mustard to ripping out goalposts. Unbelievable. How fast things can change in college.
They've come a long way. But now we're starting to kind of get off the rails here, guys. Was there anything else we wanted to talk about that happened during the bye week about any of our sports teams, or are we're going to call this one a day?
Oh, the rack renovations.
Yes, rack renovations. So
it's like a really loud, perfect clap. That was perfect.
Sorry. So Richie, you asked a question during the press conference with Pike on late last week, which if you guys haven't watched, is great. Like Pike goes for about 40 minutes.
It was like 35 minutes.
Yeah, he's kind of just like let everybody ask all the questions they had, and then once they were exhausted, he kind of handed over the mic. But one of the things you asked was about the rack, what we were going to see, or the jersey mics. Was there any plan for when that was going to happen? And he said no. And then some pictures got released on the internet. And it turns out they got released because I think Rutgers accidentally put them up on one of their sites, right?
Oops.
Like the pictures were on the Rutgers website and then they were taken down. But it sounds like these renderings are real. And what can you guys tell us about the rack renderings and kind of a timeline if we have it? Because they do look great if you guys haven't seen the pictures yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen them, at Rutgers Rivals on any social media platform, pretty much. So yeah, I got accused of strategically planting that question in there, but obviously I had no idea this was coming. I got someone that tweeted at me right after, and they're like, "Hey, you want to see the photos?" I was like, "What photos?" And he was like, "The rack," and I'm like, "Shut up, send me these." And I'm like, "Holy shit! Like this is real. Like it actually looks pretty cool, and it goes. It's pretty accurate based on everything we've heard. They want to make the that side part of the trapezoid the entranceway. I didn't know how they were going to do it or how they were going to build like a facade around it, but it actually is it's like a mini trapezoid on top of a trapezoid, and it's like okay, I guess we just keep playing on this shape, sure. And it actually looks really
like
sharp.
trapezoid, so we put a trapezoid on your trapezoid.
Yeah, like it looks sharp though. Like the inside, it's like the all glass like exterior. You have to keep the whole frame of the building itself. If you look, you can see like the pillars are still there because I think that was a big issue that they can't move the pillars at all. Mm-hmm. Unless they wanted to like completely redo the arena. It does look like our press box is going to be moved, so I don't know how I feel about that because I don't know where they're going to put us now. I mean, putting
Yeah, I couldn't. I tried to look for something. I don't know.
Put us at the court. Like,
well, that's what most like arenas do for press. It's like either behind the basket or whatever. But this also will allow like it almost looks like fans are closer, and it's going to get the place even louder than what it is. And then you get your club suites and all that stuff, and that's your moneymaker and your bread and butter in terms of arenas, in terms of making any type of money. It's all the rich people that are buying like the press boxes and the luxury seats, and it seems like you kind of get all that now. And then I know fans aren't going to like this, or at least the older fans won't like this, but I think it also allows the students to go closer to the court, almost like a Cameron Indoor type thing where you put them like mid-court instead of behind the basket now. And they will get that place going bonkers when Rutgers is good.
Yeah, I've always said, like, I don't know why the students are so far away from the basket. Like, put them on the court. Like,
what are you going to put the moneymaker people in the bleachers?
Yeah,
here you go. Here's your popcorn. Like it's a rough look now in terms of luxury, but like
I know you've sat in this seat for the last 20 years, but we're gonna give it to this undergrad group now, so you can sit behind the basket now. Yeah, no,
but I guess the thinking is most of them are going to be like, hey, I'm going to go to these ones behind. I don't even know what hoop this is, behind one of the hoops, and then like that middle section almost seems like a Audi Club or whatever the hell it's called, Provident Bank Club type suite. So I mean, and then you get more sponsorship deals too as well. So that's huge. And the biggest thing is that Jersey Mike's made this deal saying like, yeah, you got to get this renovations done. I think it was like within 3 to 5 years or something like that, right? So it's like
I think by 2027,
like escalate a little bit. Like you got to kind of get things going like a little bit. And so this is going to get done before the practice facility, in my opinion, for football. So that's not a bad thing because the RAC needs it, and you get a bowl. Like you get a bowl. I'm very excited about these.
Yeah, it sounds like the Shiano Mansion project or whatever you want to call it, the spaceship. Probably not happening anytime soon. Yeah, the Death Star, which I'm sure he's not going to be happy about, but we'll see.
NIL.
Hopefully it goes towards NIL. That's one thing I want to talk about, guys. If you haven't joined the Knight Society or the Knights of the Raritan yet, you really. I kind of implore you to do it because Rutgers is in a pretty disadvantaged spot right now when it comes to NIL stuff. We really need as many people to join as possible because it's a great talking point. I think they're at over 500 members of the Knights of the Raritan right now. Sign up, even at the lowest entry-level point. It's every dollar counts. Sounds like they're expanding their offerings to businesses. So if you would like to do something with your personal business, you could contact the guys at Knights of the Raritan. They post on the boards. They're easy to find on social media, and they respond basically immediately. So if you have anything you'd like to talk about with them, they're awesome guys, so give them a shout. One more thing about basketball as well. There's already 3 games that have sold out, and we're 3 weeks away from opening day. So I'd imagine – what'd you say?
Real sellouts.
3 real sellouts. Yeah, every single ticket has been sold by the athletic department to people who actually want to be there. So if you're trying to go to games this year, buy tickets now because the week of I can tell you from experience, when I was trying to go to games last year and I didn't buy a season ticket, when I was trying to buy single game tickets, they're at least double face value when you go to the secondary market. So get them early. Pick out your day you want to go. Pick out your weekend you want to go because you're going to regret it if you don't.
Yeah, and we'll figure out how to do a live podcast at one of these events. I feel like that could be a cool
I feel like we have to. I don't know if we want to talk to some venues to kind of maybe host us. That might be cool. Or to do it after the game.
Knight Society.
But that's all I got. Anything else from you guys?
Yeah, actually, I got one thing I should have mentioned earlier. We got the rare. It was rare that we got to talk to a coordinator mid-season last week, so we went and talked to Nuns after practice the other day. Obviously, didn't want to reveal much, but a lot of talk was about how they want to form an identity on offense, and this is what Rutgers wants to do and is going to do it well. Obviously, it didn't dive into detail about what they want to do and what they do well, but he said they want to establish an identity. Obviously, it's hard to kind of do much and tweak a lot of things, and in the middle of the season, which is obviously also something Greg Schiano has never done. Schiano's never made staff moves like like this during the season, so that was new for him. Obviously he was the head coach and offensive coordinator in 2019. I don't think the offense will be like that in particular. Obviously he got to scrap everything. I don't really think he'll do that this time. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting what they do on offense. We didn't get a chance to see practice last week. We just went for interviews. So. That'll be something to see this week, and hopefully, we can provide a little insight, but probably not because we can't talk about practice. But yeah, but it was good. It was good to talk to Nuns. It was good to see him again. So haven't had a chance to talk to him while on the record. So yeah,
love it,
And
Chris.
just, I want to kind of go back to the rack talking. I don't know if Richie or Chris have any updates where. Do we have any more of a clue of where Rutgers could relocate once those renovations start?
No, it's going to be like a year or two away still. It sounds like they reached out to Trenton. Trenton said, well, they kind of were like, hey, like, that's a bad idea. That's far. It sounds like Prudential is probably the go-to for that. But I got one thing to say, and I think 3 out of 4 of us can agree on this. Let's go Yanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fuck you, Mike.
Well, he's already in the NLCS.
We're already in the NLCS. I mean, you guys are still in
barely.
the division series.
What?
Man, that
Yeah,
was
'cause our-
that was so last weekend.
No
Come on.
football team and baseball team in the NLCS. I mean, what's going on?
It's because we have a
Really,
shitty
man.
manager.
And the Phillies are playing well though. You got to give them props. I'll be honest.
Yeah, give him props. That would make me any less pissed.
It's so funny how many people are like hating this new playoff system now that their teams have lost. It's like, it's not fair to the teams that won all season. They have to sit for 5 days, and now they're just how many people are bitching about this new system when it's everybody dealt with it. Like, you guys got to advance to the NLDS or the ALDS. It's not our fault that 2 of the 4 favorites so far have lost. Yankees could lose and be another favorite that gets knocked out after tonight. Or they play tonight or tomorrow?
Tonight. But relax
Yeah.
about that knockout.
Tonight? Okay.
We're not the Mets.
Mets fans continue to be perpetually down bad. I can't remember the last time the Mets truly had something fun to talk about. I mean, they did make the World Series in 2015, right?
Mm-hmm.
They did win 100 and something games to lose
They did,
the division.
but it's like empty calories if you just flame out in the first round of the playoffs.
That's a good comparison. All right, I think that's it, right?
Yeah, that's it. We went long today, guys. We had a lot to talk about. We went through a lot. I appreciate you guys listening once again. If you haven't already, please rate and review our podcast because that does help us find other users. If you haven't already, please follow us on YouTube. We're just Rutgers Football 1.
We got a Twitter.
We have a Twitter as well. Our podcast now is a Twitter. It's just TKR Podcast, so give that a follow. But for the rest of us and myself, thanks for tuning in once again. This has been another edition of the Night Report Podcast. Signing off.